Hey guys, this is Dae Bogan here. Looking forward to doing this Ask Me Anything about the Mechanical Licensing Collective. I'm going to go ahead and let people tune in. I'll give it a few minutes while the signal is going out and people are seeing the notifications. Still waiting to see if anyone can join. This is my first time trying the Facebook Live here in Artist Managers Connect, so hopefully everything connects well. I'm not seeing where anyone has joined me. Can you post in the comments? Everyone, can you post in the comments to let me know you're tuning in? This is my first time doing the Facebook Live in the Artist Managers Connect group, so you're our guinea pigs. All right. I see activity, so I'm not sitting here alone. Can you hear my audio? So this is a Ask Me Anything About the MLC, which means you need to ask me some things. But before I jump in, I want to start with some background about the MLC, sort of frame this conversation, and then let you go ahead and ask me questions. So, for those who are not familiar, the MLC stands for the Mechanical Licensing Collective. We are a nonprofit organization that was designated by the United States Copyright Office to administer the new blanket audio mechanical license, which was created by the Music Modernization Act of 2018. Um, the Our responsibility is quite straightforward. We're to administer the mechanical license, the compulsory license, which is the new blanket one, and in doing so, we're going to collect royalties from DSPs such as Spotify, Apple, Tidal, Deezer, so forth. Remit statements to songwriters, publishers, composers, lyricists, and make payments, royalty payments. Those royalty payments will be on a monthly basis beginning April 2021. Um, so that's the very clear, simplified gist of it. I want to go into some very specifics in regards to eligibility, in regards to some key dates, as well as talk about some differences between the MLC and other organizations, as well as the license that we're administering, as well as to demystify some of the confusion out in the industry. Um, so first of all, the MLC is administering the compulsory blanket mechanical license. Again, this license was created by the passing of the Music Modernization Act in 2018. The purpose of this license is to ensure that songs are properly licensed by those who decide to use the blanket license in the United States. This then shifts the responsibility onto the MLC to identify the rights holders in the works that are licensed, to remit payments and statements. This also requires us working collaboratively with rights holders and publishers to get information about the rights that the musical works that you represent, as well as the ownership percentages in those works, so that we can properly identify and pay out the proper payees. Um, the blanket license is basically an all-you-can-eat license for DSPs, and which is different from the voluntary license that services such as Harry Fox, Music Reports, MediaNet help to facilitate on behalf of their digital service clients. And it's also different from the way that the compulsory license used to work for DSPs. The compulsory license used to work where DSPs would have to remit what's called a notice of intent to the copyright owners in musical works, notifying copyright owners that they intend to obtain a compulsory mechanical license, then report usage and make payments on a monthly basis to the rights holders. The challenge for many years has been identifying the copyright owners. There's many different reasons for those challenges. Part of the reasons has to do with poor metadata. Part of it has to do with copyright owners not registering works. Part of it has to do with the challenges internally at various services in regards to their own administration and their obligations. So all of these challenges ultimately led to this growing black box of unclaimed royalties associated with unmatched usage, and has caused obviously many years of tension and conflict as various parties try to sort out and address these issues. That led to a number of years of developing and writing legislation or bills in the industry to represent the various stakeholders, ultimately, which led to the three-part legislation, the Music Modernization Act. Title I of that act is the Musical Works Modernization Act. which updates the way in which DSPs are licensed in the United States, particularly creating this new blanket license as opposed to doing a one-by-one NOI license of each song. Now, by securing the blanket license, effectively all songs used on the platform would be licensed in the United States for usage. Then the DSP is responsible for remitting to the Mechanical Licensing Collective a usage report, as well as to calculate and pay out the mechanical royalties. The other parts of MMA I'm not going to really dive into, which includes Title II, which is an update to pre-1972 recordings, also called the Classics Act, and then Title III, which is the AMP Act, Allocation for Music Producers, which codified a process for producers to receive a piece of the digital radio royalties. But those two pieces of the legislation doesn't have an impact on the MLC. The next thing I want to talk about is eligibility for songwriters, composers, lyricists. This includes what we call beat makers or producers who are making the music. If you are a self-administered songwriter, then you may be eligible to join the MLC. The difference between a self-administered songwriter and a self-published songwriter is that a self-published songwriter owns their publishing and may hire a third party, such as a publishing administrator, to actually do the administration work, such as registering works with CMOs and collecting royalties. A self-administered songwriter also owns their publishing, but is handling their own administration, either directly or with the support of an artist manager or lawyer or some kind of support. But effectively, the songwriter is responsible for registering their works with CMOs and various music rights organizations and receiving royalties directly as a result. So as a self-administered songwriter, you're eligible to join the MLC. If you are a songwriter who has hired a publishing administrator or a songwriter who's in a publishing deal, whether it's a co-pub deal, a full pub deal, single song deal, whatever these deal structures may be, it's important to evaluate your catalog to determine if all of your works are represented in those deals. And if so, then you may not be eligible to join the MLC because the works are being represented by a publisher or a publishing administrator that is a member of the MLC. In some cases, there are self-published songwriters who've hired third-party publishing administrators for some of their works, but not all of their works. For example, if you use CD Baby Pro to distribute your music, well, CD Baby Pro service includes distribution, but also publishing administration. But it's generally for the works embodied in that release. So if you don't have a release going through CD Baby Pro, then that release may not be covered under administration. And in that case, those works that are not a part of that release could make you eligible to join the MLC. Again, it's important to get clarity with your publisher or publishing administrator if you are self-published or self-administered. Some other key things to note is that the license availability date was January 1st. So as of January this year, services are now operating under the compulsory blanket mechanical license. They have the responsibility of sending to the MLC what's called a notice of license to notify the MLC that they are operating under the compulsory license. Operating means following the stipulations of the statute in regards to reporting requirements, payment requirements, and so forth. So over the next several weeks, the MLC will be receiving these notices of license from various digital service providers, notifying us that they are operating under the blanket mechanical license. Then they will either calculate their royalties and remit payment, or we will calculate those royalties on their behalf. They have two options there. We receive the royalty payments from the DSP. We then also receive the usage reports from DSPs. We match those usage reports to the underlying musical work information in our database, and then we're able to allocate those royalties appropriately based on the ownership percentages or the collection percentages, specifically collection percentages associated with those musical works. We then remit payments. The payments will begin in April 2021, and then payments will be on a monthly basis as long as a payee meets the statute's threshold, which I believe is about $5. So the threshold is about $5 for direct deposits, and then there's a different threshold for paper checks and a different threshold for ACH bank transfers, and this is in the statute. So if you're a songwriter that is earning mechanical royalties from the streams of your music on a monthly basis, then you should expect to receive a payment on a monthly basis from the MLC going forward, starting April 2021. Okay, so a couple more things I want to jump into. I have a couple polls that I want to throw out and see if you can answer these questions for me. Okay, so a couple more things. Okay. So I just published a poll. Do you know if your artist is self-administered? So if the client that you represent is self-administered, can you click yes? Based on my description of a self-administered songwriter. Again, a self-administered songwriter is a songwriter who not only owns their own publishing, but is responsible for registering their own works and collecting their royalties directly. Even though a songwriter may use the support of a manager or a lawyer or an accountant or someone else, the point is that the self-administered songwriter owns their works. Just give a few more seconds to allow people to respond to the poll. My artist, and if you're an artist, you can read this as yourself, is self-administered songwriter. And I'm going to get to the questions in the comments shortly. Okay, so I'm going to show the results. So we look like 82% of you are representing self-administered songwriters, which is not surprising. So it's really important that the self-administered songwriters begin the process of joining the MLC. It is free to join the MLC. The MLC does not have an administration fee, so 100% of the royalties that are collected on your behalf or on your client's behalf passes through directly to the songwriter. There is no 15 or 10% off the top. And again, this is on a monthly basis. So I'm going to talk about another issue or another question that I get a lot, the difference between a PRO and the MLC. So a PRO, performing rights organizations such as ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC. There's also GMR and the new one, All Tracks. PRO's responsibilities obviously is representing the public performance right for songwriters and publishers to license music users from DSPs to businesses, to restaurants and so forth, and then to allocate and pay out royalties on a 50% publisher share, 50% writer share, or 100% from a BMI standpoint. That's a PRO. The Mechanical Licensing Collective is not a PRO. The Mechanical Licensing Collective is an agency representing the mechanical interest for publishers and songwriters, specifically administering the blanket mechanical license under the statute. So when a song is streamed on Spotify or Apple, on the publishing side, it earns a royalty for the public performance, and then it also earns a royalty for the reproduction or the mechanical. So the public performance royalties flow through a public performance organization such as ASCAP or BMI or CSAC, and then the mechanical royalty will flow through the Mechanical Licensing Collective. Um, this is for the blanket license. Now, in scenarios where a company, whether it's a download store or a music app, uses a voluntary license, which I'm going to talk about a little bit, it will not flow through the MLC. But the MLC will collect all royalties for digital downloads, for interactive streams that are usage under the blanket license. The MLC is the only agency in the United States that is designated to administer the blanket license. So if you hear anyone saying, "Oh, well, I'm going to sign up for another company for the blanket license. I'm not going to sign up with MLC," you're completely wrong. There is no other organization or company, nonprofit or for-profit, that will be administering the blanket license. So it's the MLC only. So I just threw up a poll to ask if you understand the difference between a PRO and the MLC. Let me give a couple seconds for people to answer that. Trying to see if the poll results show up. All right, so 89% of you understand the difference between a PRO and the MLC, and 11% did not. Again, I want to clarify that a PRO stands for Performing Rights Organization, which is an organization that represents the public performance rights. The Mechanical Licensing Collective represents the mechanical rights or the reproduction rights, specifically the mechanical license, which embodies the reproduction rights. Two different organizations or two different types of organizations representing two different royalty streams: performance royalties, mechanical royalties. You need to join both. If you're a self-administered songwriter, or if you represent a self-administered songwriter who is a member of ASCAP or BMI or CSEC, then they also need to become a member of the MLC. Otherwise, they're not collecting the mechanical royalty that's also generated in those streams. So next thing I want to talk about is, again, the difference between a blanket mechanical license and a voluntary mechanical license. Some of you are very familiar already with agencies such as the Harry Fox Agency, Music Reports, MediaNet. These companies are responsible for a number of services for their customers, for their clients, including helping their digital service clients secure direct licenses with rights holders on both the mechanical and performance side, public performance side. So when a agency such as that or a company such as that is facilitating securing direct licenses from from rights holders, including publishers, as well as self-administered songwriters who've created accounts with Music Reports or with Harry Fox, that is called a voluntary license or a direct license. The blanket license is a compulsory license that, again, only the MLC is administering. The blanket license is not an actual document. So we're not issuing a document to Spotify that says you now have a blanket license. The blanket license is effectively a process or following a set of procedures as spelled out in the law. So the Music Modernization Act plus the Copyright Act, Section 115 of the Copyright Act, with the updates or modifications or revisions made by the Music Modernization Act, Title I, which is the Musical Works Modernization Act. So again, a direct license or voluntary license is an actual document with a set of terms, grants of rights, durations, territory information that a rights holder enters into either directly by signing it or by opting in, using some electronic mechanisms such as the things that Harry Fox and Music Reports send out to customers or their clients, versus a voluntary, compulsory license is not an actual issuance of a license. It's rather a service abiding by the stipulations of the law, and then making sure that they're following, the guidelines of the law. And we, the MLC, receive the usage statements and the royalty payments in accordance with the law. So that's what the voluntary compulsory license is. It's a procedure, it's a process that a DSP has to follow, versus a voluntary license or direct license is an actual set of terms negotiated between a rights holder and the DSP, or an agent on behalf of the rights holder, such as Harry Fox or Music Reports, and then they're entered into. That's the same thing on the that's the same thing that happens sort of on the master side when it comes to direct deals with labels and distributors. That's a direct or voluntary agreement. There is no kind of compulsory blanket agreement when it comes to interactive streaming. Okay, so not that many people responded to this last poll. So even though the results look like a lot of people don't understand the difference between a blanket and a voluntary, there were 2 people that responded no, and 5 people that responded yes. So even though it looks a little scary, so I hope you do understand now the difference between a blanket mechanical license. The blanket mechanical license is administered by the MLC. Voluntary licenses are administered by any number of companies, directly with publishers, publishing administrators, agents of publishers such as Harry Fox, and so forth. And the last thing I kind of teed up to talk about is the difference between Sound Exchange and the MLC. And after this, I'm going to jump into the comments and answer your questions. So some of you are familiar with Sound Exchange because your clients are artists and songwriters, and you've already walked them through the process of joining Sound Exchange. If you have not, then if they're eligible, they should join. Sound Exchange and the MLC are different and similar. So how are they similar? Sound Exchange is the only organization designated by the United States to administer Section 112 and 114 of the Copyright Act. That is related to the master or the copyright in the sound recording. So the copyright in the sound recording, or the master, whatever you want to call it, Sound Exchange is handling that administration. That has to do with the digital public performance and the sound sound recording, which is related to the 1995 Digital Public Performance and the Sound Recording Act of 1995. So Sound Exchange is collecting royalties from webcasters, from internet music services, from satellite music services, from cable music services that are providing radio-like or passive listening experiences or non-interactive experiences for the master sound recording. Sound Exchange then pays out royalties to the copyright owner in the sound recording and the featured performer, the artist. The MLC is similar in the sense that we also are designated by the United States to administer a particular license associated with the Copyright Act, but it is the 115. Again, Sound Exchange is sections 112 and 114. MLC is section 115 of the compulsory mechanical license, specifically the blanket license version. And we're dealing with the musical work copyright, not the sound recording. So Sound Exchange is dealing with the sound recording. We're dealing with the musical work, which is the composition, the lyrics, the melody, the arrangement, and so forth. And then we're paying out songwriters and publishers, whereas they're paying out artists and labels or copyright owners in the master. We're paying out the publishers and songwriters. So similar in the sense that we're both organizations that were designated to administer sections of the Copyright Act in accordance with legislation. Their legislation was which is the digital performance, Digital Public Performance and Sound Recording Act of 1995, and ours is the Music Modernization Act of obviously 2018. So if you are a singer-songwriter or a rapper who's performing the works that you're collecting, then performing the works that you're writing, then not only do you have to join Sound Exchange for the purposes of collecting royalties from non-interactive services like Pandora and SiriusXM and Music Choice and iHeartRadio, but also have to join the MLC for collecting mechanical royalties associated with the blanket license for interactive services, your Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, Deezer, and so forth. Pandora is a great example of the combination of these two things, because Pandora offers a non-interactive service, obviously the radio, Pandora Radio, and then Pandora also offers an interactive service, and those services are licensed through these different mechanisms. And then the royalties associated with those licenses flow through the different organizations. So if you are getting your music on Pandora, on all of its different types of features or use possibilities, then you're going to collect royalties associated from your music on Pandora from your PRO for ASCAP, BMI, CSAC. In regards to the public performance and the musical work, you'll collect royalties from the MLC in regards to the blanket mechanical license for the interactive piece of Pandora. And then you'll also collect royalties from Sound Exchange for the non-interactive piece of Pandora. So that's 3 different types of organizations, all receiving royalties for different grants of rights for different types of use on the same platform. So if you are a singer-songwriter or a rapper or a producer and artist, you have to be properly registered with all these organizations, right? You have to register your music to make sure that everyone knows who you are and what your music is. Okay, the last piece is the MLC is a United States agency. We're collecting royalties only for the usage in the United States, and we're paying out the payees in accordance with the collection percentages for the musical works. So that means we're not collecting mechanical royalties for any usage outside the United States. So if your music is being streamed on Spotify in the UK, we are not collecting those mechanical royalties. We're only collecting royalties for Spotify usage in the United States. Same thing with Apple and Tidal and so forth. That means as a self-administered songwriter, you still have to have a partner or solution in place for collecting those international mechanical royalties, those ex-US mechanical royalties. That could be a publishing administrator, that could be a sub-publisher, specifically in those territories. There's a lot of different ways of doing that. But the MLC does not collect mechanical royalties internationally. We only collect mechanical royalties that are generated from usage in the United States, and then we pay those out to any member of the MLC. So you can be a non-US songwriter or publisher that has joined the MLC for the purposes of collecting your US mechanical royalties directly. Or if you are, for those of you who are artist managers in territories outside the United States representing songwriters in your territory, it depends on your territory. Some territories, there are CMOs that have exclusive representation of your rights in that territory, and therefore have exclusive reciprocal relationships. We do not, as an organization, have reciprocal relationships, meaning we do not receive royalties from territories. We have a unilateral relationship where we will pay out CMOs in other territories who become a member of the MLC. So a CMO like GEMA in Germany will become a member of the MLC for the purpose of collecting mechanical royalties in the United States to then pay out their members in Germany. So that's clarity on that. Now I'm going to open up questions. I see there's several questions here in the comments, so I'm just going to run through and check them off as I go through them. Okay, so I see Consuela has a question. Is the amount of blanket license determined after the majors have negotiated their license with the DSPs? No, the royalty rates for the mechanical licensing collective is not set based on negotiations between labels and CMOs. The royalty rates are set by the Copyright Royalty Board, which are 3 copyright royalty judges. So the royalty rates are set by the Copyright Royalty Board, which is a percentage. There's multiple rates, right? So we have digital downloads, which are still 9.1 cents. We have interactive streams, which the royalty rate was updated several years ago, but that's obviously, well, not obviously, some of you may not know this already, but there is currently that those updates are being contested, right? So it's, a lot of information is in the press already in regards to various services challenging those rates. So what the actual royalty rate will be for the mechanical interactive stream is still something that's being essentially effectively challenged. But the royalty rate is not set by major labels or major publishers. It's set by a combination of copyright royalty judges, and basically through litigation and various types of appeals and so forth. I can't get into the legalities of it all, but you can Google search in regards to mechanical licensing royalty rate. But it's not set by an individual major publisher. All right, question from Sam. Does registration with MLC supersede registration with HFA and MRI? So the MLC is a standalone organization that hired Harry Fox Agency as its first significant vendor for the purposes of helping the MLC stand up operations. A part of standing up the operations included Harry Fox Agency turning over its existing database of musical works and the ownership percentages associated with it to help the MLC create a starting point for its database. We've started an initiative in the summer of last year to update that data. We have the Data Quality Initiative, which is a initiative that enables publishers as well as self-administered songwriters and administrators to check their existing data with the MLC using a pretty simplified bulk checking process. We've announced, in my role at third-party partnerships, I've worked with a number of companies that directly work with emerging and independent songwriters and smaller publishers, such as Music Data Services, Blocker, Tune Registry, and Exactuals. There's also Vistex, Counterpoint. All of these companies, these 5 technology companies, enable publishers, self-administered songwriters to participate in the Data Quality Initiative. The Data Quality Initiative purpose is for rights holders to check their data in the MLC's database. This is not something that you can do at most rights organizations. You can't provide most rights organizations your entire catalog and say, check my data to make sure that there aren't any discrepancies, or where there are discrepancies, you're notified of those discrepancies so that you can act on it. So the Data Quality Initiative, which kicked off last year and has been going on, pretty much all the rest of last year. We've already checked several million works, and we're continually checking works every week. Is a process for checking your data that's already been registered with the MLC. Well, it was registered with the Harry Fox Agency, right? And then we acquired it so that you're able to check that data to see where there may be discrepancies. If there are discrepancies, then you have an opportunity to act on those discrepancies. And let's say, for example, an IPI number is missing, or a songwriter is duplicated, or a song title is misspelled. Whatever the discrepancy may be, you have an opportunity to fix those discrepancies, which coming from music metadata, coming from rights registrations, work registrations, I know that this is a amazing thing that we weren't able to do with most such societies. The next thing we have is the ability to obviously register new works. So by joining the MLC and accessing the MLC portal, you can register all of your works to the MLC. We have a bulk work file, which is an Excel template that allows you to put all your data into an Excel template and upload that for registration. For those of you who own publishing companies and use a service or a catalog management service that allows you to export CWR files, you can register with CWR. or you can just register one by one in our portal using the registration process. So there's different ways to register works to the MLC. Let me just make sure. There's different ways to register works to the MLC. But so that's what I want to cover. But to get back to the question in regards to, does MLC registration supersedes HFA and MRI? First of all, MRI, which is Music Reports, is its own standalone company. So its database is not shared with Harry Fox Agency, and it's not shared with the MLC. The database that the MLC has been, again, data acquired from the HFA, and we have a continued ongoing relationship with HFA to continue to receive data from HFA. So new works that are registered to Harry Fox Agency will also flow to the MLC. The works that are in the MLC's database is publicly accessible to everyone. So you can go and search right now, the MLC. You can go to MLC.com and click on public search, and you can search the MLC's database. We also have a bulk way of accessing all of the data, all of our catalog database via a machine readable format. And that was just announced a couple of weeks ago as well. So anyone can search the public database. That is something that was mandated by the MMA. Anyone can access it in bulk. There's a small subscription fee regarding that. So all of the data is visible in regards to the actual work registrations and the ownership. All right, Tim, if I didn't answer that correctly, do a follow-up in the, or if I didn't answer that completely, let me know. All right, I see Steve Mann has a question. How does this, or does it differ from the U.S. streaming mechanical royalties that have been collected over the last few years by an agency such as Audium? So again, similar to other agencies out there that are dealing in the mechanical royalty space. Well, let me take a step back. So mechanical royalties stem from a lot of different types of usage. You have digital downloads, you have interactive streams. Those are two types of usage. But you also have mechanical royalties associated with physical goods like CDs and vinyl and cassettes. You also have mechanical royalties associated with ringtones, right? So you also have mechanical royalties that are embodied in all-in royalty deals that include performance royalties for direct licenses for music startup apps, right? Different types of apps that may have multiple rights included in the deal. And it may say this includes mechanical and performance and whatever other types of royalties that may be due, all embodied in some all-in royalty. So you have to understand that the MLC, we're only dealing with the limited downloads, permanent downloads, and interactive streams. We're not dealing in the physical goods space. So CDs, vinyl, cassettes. We're not dealing with the ringtone space. We're not dealing with the bundled rights space, which is a deal for like a music app startup that includes different types of rights. It may include sync, it may include reproduction, it may include public performance. So we're only dealing with a limited scope of usage for one particular right, reproduction or mechanical for digital downloads and for interactive. That means all these other usage types still are administered the way that it always been, using agencies such as Harry Fox, Music Reports, Audium, directly with publishers. So publishers do this stuff directly as well. Various administrators, your Song Trust, your Centric. So they're all still operating in the volunteer license, the direct license space. They're also, so they're not dealing with the blanket license for these two types of use, downloads and interactive, but rather they're dealing with other types of use. So Audium, Music Reports, Harry Fox, they still operate, but they're not operating under, or they're not operating to administer the blanket mechanical license. They're operating the way they've always have, just in regards to direct licenses and voluntary licenses. There is still a compulsory license that is not blanket. For example, cover songs. If you're a songwriter that's doing YouTube covers and you want to do a cover of an artist, there is still a compulsory mechanical process for that Section 115 in terms of issuing a notice of intent, generating reports, making payments. There's still platforms like song clearance and cover song clearance platforms that help with that process. So there's still a compulsory process that has nothing to do with the blanket compulsory process. So those companies still exist to work in that space. So U.S. streaming mechanicals, U.S. streaming mechanical royalties. Just so I'm super clear, Steve. If we're talking about U.S. streaming mechanical royalties under the blanket license, that would be MLC. If we're talking about U.S. streaming mechanical royalties under a voluntary license, that will be any of the many type of companies that deal in that volunteer license space. Okay, so it's either blanket for MLC or voluntary, which can be Audium, Music Reports, Harry Fox, MediaNet, and a bunch of other companies. Okay, Jeremy asks, so obviously taking it with a grain of salt, how much truth is it that there's to Jeff Price comments like under MMA, publishing admin like Songtrust that charges flat fee for service can take your royalties and keep them if they fail to get them paid to you via the MLC, literally benefit by not getting their clients paid and make more money. Did they disclose this to clients? Well, you need to talk to Songtrust. I can't speak on behalf of Songtrust. I can't speak on behalf of Jeff Price either. I'll say this though. Songtrust is a publishing administrator. There are many publishing administrators out there. They're simply one of the biggest. Their job is to register works, collect royalties, and pay their songwriters. They, of course, as a significant size, can go beyond that in terms of doing some type of direct deals and a number of global deals with in different territories. But they're ultimately the basics of their job is to register works, collect royalties, and pay songwriters, and then to use their volume as your ability to bargain and do direct deals of different types. You know, they have direct deals with startup apps. They have direct deals with other types of platforms other than DSPs. The question of under the MMA, a publishing admin like Songtrust that charges a flat fee for service can take. Well, first of all, Songtrust doesn't charge a flat fee. They have a commission, which is a percentage of which is 15%. So that's inaccurate already. And keep them if they fail to get them paid to you via the MLC. I don't even understand what that means. So you can follow up with me and get me some more clarity on what that sentence is supposed to mean, and then maybe I can address that. I'm going to move on to Sam. Will the MLC establish reciprocal mechanical collections with foreign societies? No. The MLC is U.S. only. It's designated by the Copyright Office to collect U.S. mechanical royalties to administer the U.S. Compulsory license. It is not designated by the Copyright Office to do anything outside of the United States. So the U.S. Copyright Office is responsible for the Copyright Act in terms of obviously overseeing the administration of the various licenses, and in doing so, it designates organizations like Sound Exchange and MLC to effectively do the work in accordance with the statutes. The statute defines the scope of work, right? It's United States mechanical licenses. It's not global mechanical licenses. So we probably will not have reciprocal agreements with other territories because we're not a standalone organization like ASCAP or BMI, which are not government mandated organizations. They're nonprofit organizations representing their members, and they can, they do have some regulation, obviously, through the consent decrees, but that's a whole nother webinar. Okay, Consuelo, another question. Does it even make sense to continue to use HFA for U.S. digital mechanical royalties? Again, Harry Fox Agency and MLC are doing different sets of operations. So, for example, if you intend to enter into a lyric fine deal for your lyrics, or the next round of Facebook publishing blanket, or their Facebook direct deal, or with music reports for things like TikTok and Peloton. Like, these are all licensing opportunities for rights holders that have nothing to do with the blanket mechanical license or the MLC. So choosing not to work with Harry Fox Agency or Music Reports or MediaNet or any of these companies that operate completely outside of the scope of the blanket license means that you're choosing not to participate in direct licensing opportunities and other revenue opportunities. From a practical business sense standpoint, me being a former publisher and a manager of songwriters, I'm going to make sure my clients are participating in every revenue opportunity there may be. That includes Harry Fox, Music Reports, and so forth. Because those revenue sources are not flowing through the MLC, they're related to licensing opportunities and usage types that MLC has nothing to do with, because MLC is only administering a very limited scope of responsibility as defined by the MMA. Whereas these companies are dealing with all types of varied licensing and business opportunities. So the quick answer is yes, you should probably look into partnering, or not partnering, but creating an account with HFA. I've written about this in the past in my work at the Tune Registry. I've helped many songwriters create accounts with Harry Fox Agency for the purposes of registering their songs so they can participate in the types of direct deals that Harry Fox. Same thing with Music Reports. We've registered thousands of songs to Music Reports on behalf of independents, of self-administered songwriters. So there's no reason to not do that now. The MMA has taken out one piece of their many offerings and centralized it or consolidated it in the MLC. That one piece is only interactive streaming services like Spotify and Apple, or any interactive service or download service that chooses to operate under the blanket license. It didn't take out any of the other services or any of the other opportunities that those companies are still operating under. All right, got it. Steve asks, so if there's a catalog, give me 1 second, guys. I'll respond to something here. I want to give you guys some more time, so I'm pushing the meeting back 10 minutes. I want to make sure I get to as many questions as possible. Okay, so Steve asks, so if there's a catalog collecting voluntary licenses as per older agencies, does that catalog have a secondary revenue to come from via this blanket license, or do you have to choose one path or the other? Example: Spotify plays a song, it's already paying out on the particular song as per the pathway. Should that song be registered via the MLC? Okay, so you're asking if the song will remain under a voluntary license even though the blanket license now exists. That's a good question. But who determines that is the service, not the MLC nor the publisher, the rights holder. The service determines that. So Apple put out an announcement to publishers and rights holders last month, stating that it will be it will be operating under the blanket mechanical license, which means that some portion of the songs that are streamed on Apple Music will no longer be administered under its voluntary direct licenses, but instead under the blanket license. That's not a choice that the publisher gets to choose, because the blanket license is compulsory, which means compulsory basically means the recipient of that permission, that compulsory permission, does not necessarily need direct permission. They simply needs to follow the procedures of the statute to have that grant of right. So by any service choosing to move from a direct license or a voluntary license to the compulsory blanket license, they should send a notification to rights holders, and there's many ways of doing that, to let you know that these works will now be licensed under the blanket license deal. So it's not going to. I want to clarify two things. One, A particular copyright could actually be represented under, and this might confuse you, but I want to give you the information anyway. A copyright could be represented under both a direct license and a blanket license simultaneously at a service. But it depends on the portion of that copyright owned. So let's say me and Sam told me, use this example. Me and Sam co-wrote a song, and 50% of the song is owned by me, and 50% of the song is owned by Sam. And Sam is self-administered songwriter, which means he owns the copyright and he administers the copyright. And therefore, as a self-administered songwriter, he joins the MLC, and his portion, his 50% of that song is represented under the blanket license on Spotify. But then I am signed to Sony ATV as a songwriter. Now, Sony ATV has a direct license with Spotify. So my 50% of the copyright is a part of Sony ATV's catalog, which is a direct license with Spotify. So I'm going to get paid through my publisher, Sony ATV, in accordance with my publishing deal, which might include recoupments and other types of stipulations, which means that I might get paid later than Sam, right? Because Spotify is going to pay Sony ATV. Sony ATV has its own accounting period, and then they're going to pay me out based on the accounting period according to the terms of my publishing agreement. Whereas Sam is a member of the MLC, he's going to get paid out on a monthly basis because Spotify has to pay MLC on a monthly basis and account to Sam on a monthly basis. So we can be two writers on the same copyright, but because he's self-administered and because I'm represented by a publisher, we might have different experiences related to the same mechanical ownership and the same copyright. So Steve, I hope that it clarifies that a song can be simultaneously under a blanket and a direct deal, but it's only based on the collection or percentage or ownership of that song in relationship to the rights holder and the service. And if that confused you more, sorry. Jeremy asks, which revenue are you talking about being paid out? The revenue paid to your PRO as a songwriter? I'm not sure what question. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Jeremy. Which revenue are you talking about being paid out? The revenue paid to the songwriter. Again, I explained earlier that a PRO is different from the MLC. The PRO stands for Performing Rights Organization. It represents your performing public performance rights. It collects your public performance royalties from interactive services, and it pays you that public performance royalty. MLC collects mechanical royalties and pays out mechanical royalties. Charles asks, just to be clear, am I correct in understanding that MLC collects only mechanical royalties and does not collect anything related to master use? Yes, we collect mechanical royalties only for US usage only, and that's it. We do not collect master use. We also do not collect mechanical royalties associated with physical goods, so CDs. We also do not issue mechanical licenses for cover songs. We also do not issue mechanical licenses for ringtones. We also do not issue mechanical licenses associated with bundled rights. So if a music startup app, let's say a game app, wanted to have your ability to select a song, to then have that song musical notes appear in a window, and then you get to play some kind of interactive game on it, right? That requires a lot of different grants of rights. It may require some print rights. It may require some sync if there's audio visual, like a bunch of different things. But that license that bundles all those rights will have to be done with an agency such as Harry Fox or Music Reports or directly with the publishers, not with MLC. Steve asks, maybe a more clear question. Assuming you're dealing with a self-administered artist where there is no third-party registering works on their behalf, are there any conflicts to keep in mind with registering? Yeah, I mean, there's not a conflict. It's just about your business. So as a self-administered songwriter who's personally responsible for registering their own works, whether their manager is helping them do it or not, whether the manager is doing it or not, they need to know that by joining the MLC, they're only collecting royalties from the United States. They're not collecting royalties from ex-US. So they will still need to have a partner for collecting those royalties outside the United States. Okay, looking forward. I'm gonna take a couple more. Oh, gotcha. All right, so I think I wrapped it up here. So I thank you guys for tuning in. As a reminder, you should go to the Mechanical Licensing Collective website, which is themlc.com. There's a ton of resources on the website. If you click on news and resources, you'll see. You also click on membership to learn more about the membership. Membership is free. Membership is for anyone who has administration rights in the United States for a portion of a song or a full song. And it has nothing to do with how HFA or Music Reports or Audium or MediaNet operates. Those companies are operating data every day in their own way. The MLC only administers the Section 115 compulsory blanket license, and it's only on the musical work side. Everything on the everything on the master side is sound exchange and labels and distributors. One more question here. I see Consuelo. Sorry, just to clarify, as an HFA member, I would also have to join the MLC to receive Apple Music royalties. Yes. Again, HFA and MLC are two different organizations. Being an HFA affiliate or creating an HFA online account as a self-administered songwriter is not the same thing as joining the MLC and getting an MLC portal account, right? Two separate companies. We're an organization, they're a company. Two separate entities. You need to have a different relationship with both. Do we share data? The MLC receives data from the HFA, but the HFA is not the MLC, right? We hired HFA for the purposes of helping to stand up and helping to build infrastructure from their many years of experience. After vetting, the MLC vetted a number of companies and they selected HFA. This was announced over a year ago, but we're not the same company. Two different companies. We simply have a working relationship where we receive data from HFA and we have some operational relationship with HFA. But the entirety of the MLC database is open and available to the public, including other companies like Harry Fox and Music Reports and Audium and MediaNet. They can acquire the data from the MLC as well. All right, thank you guys.